Now that you have learned how to save a macro-enabled workbook and record macros, the next thing that we need to do is understand how to open up a workbook that has macros in them. So what we need to do is first understand macro security. As we noticed already in the Developers tab, we have a little yellow triangle exclamation mark here that says macro security. Now we need to set this up because since you are working with the Visual Basic environment in Microsoft Excel, Visual Basic is a full-blown programming language. You can do just about anything with Visual Basic. Anything from controlling other applications, recording keystrokes, looking at web browsers, the pages that you browse. It can steal data if bad intentions were part of the developer's mind. So it's very important that you have your macro settings set up to your preference. Now, by default, it's disable all macros with notification. The one that you really don't want to use is enable all macros, that's not recommended because if you were to receive a file from somebody that has malware in it, some kind of macro that is going to do damage to your computer, the developer can set up a macro to where the macro is automatically executed as soon as you open up the workbook. There wouldn't be any time for you to press any kind of command or control to stop that code from running. So it's very important that you don't have this last option set up. If you do, of course it's at your own risk, but it's not something that I would recommend doing. However, the best thing to do is have this option selected the default, disable all macros with notification, and trust access to the VBA project object model. In this case, have it check marked because we're going to be working a lot with the VBA project object model. I'm going to go on and select OK, and I'm going to close this workbook out. I'm not going to save this one because earlier I had already created a macro enabled workbook, and I'm going to open that right now, and I'm going to show you that error that we get. And it's not necessarily an error, it's a security warning. I'm going to have to change the file name. So let me do this real quick. Let me close this out. I'm going to open up the file, and we see at the top left of my screen, we see security warning, macros have been disabled. Here all you'll do is click enable content. That way we can run the macros. The reason why that didn't happen just a little while ago when I opened the file is because I had already clicked enable content, so Microsoft Excel is treating that as a file that I already trust. So right now I'm going to close this file, give you that demonstration again. I'm going to close it and open up that same exact file. This time I don't get that error. The macros are already enabled because this is a workbook that is considered to be trusted.